Okie dokie. Good afternoon, Sundancers. Welcome to the Canon Creative Studio and the Behind the Scenes series. Behind the Lens, well, whatever. I've only done this like a dozen times. I'm a little tired. The Behind the Lens series in partnership with American Cinematographer Magazine. My name is Jay Holben. I am a director and producer and the contributing technical editor to American Cinematographer Magazine, and I'm also an associate member of the ASC. And I am your host today for this panel on the business of freelancing, which I can see nobody is interested in whatsoever. So thank you all for being here. We have three extraordinary panelists with us today. Yeah, I said it. You heard me. A gentleman who could be called Mr. Sundance, Mr. Jonathan Gray, who is... Your reputation precedes you. Who is an attorney and has a long history with Sundance and representing an amazing list of clients. And we have two unbelievable angels with us today, Ms. Kristen Tolle-Billings with the WPA, and Mr. Craig Mizrahi with Innovative Artists. Yeah, come on. And I know that was all for me, not for them, so thank you very much. I appreciate it. So I think I want to make this a discussion here among us, but I'm probably going to open it up a little bit earlier for questions because there's a lot of people here to kind of get some feel in the room. But let's start with, Kristen, like you said, just defining what freelance means. What is that? What does it mean to be a freelancer?
I mean, on our end, it means that you don't know where your next job is going to be. That's part of it. I mean, and the existing job, if you're currently employed, will come to an end. It may or may not continue. You know, where your income is coming from next is TBD.
That's right.
Okay, you guys are going to be a lot harder on me than I thought you were. I was totally ready to just drop a quarter and they're going to go. There's very little aspect of this business that isn't freelance, right? We're a gig economy, we're a job to job. It's feast or famine. That is pretty much, for the most part, in my career at least, the way that it's run is...
On the production side, for sure.
Yeah.
On the production side, I would say primarily going to be freelancers, or that's what it's comprised of.
Yeah.
I've been a production lawyer for about 25 years, and every single company is a startup company. You know, we've had the privilege of working on everything from, Precious to Moonlight, and what a list of films. And every single one of those films is a startup company that employs people on a there's a distinction between freelancers and employees. But every, production that we do, is set up for this purpose of employing people on a limited basis. So it's interesting to be in that seat for as long as I have been, and how all those pieces fit together with a ton of freelancers just coming together on an indie film in an incredibly collaborative, medium. It can be tricky sometimes.
Sometimes?
Yeah, no, I would agree. As opposed to some other, other industries, freelancing in this business it's a puzzle. So all of these different freelancers come in with their skill sets, and they come together to create this beautiful piece of art. There's really nothing else like it. So part of freelancing isn't just, here's my craft, I'm going to go do it and do my thing like an individual painter or something like that. So the communication that you have with others is crucial.
And it's a business.
Yeah,
right? It's a
absolutely.
business of being a freelancer and what that entails.
Right.
I can tell you what's hugely important is transparency. I see freelancers who are putting their time on hold for productions that aren't real. I get phone calls all the time, usually from lawyers and agents, and it's 3 words: is it real? I said, well, the script's printed on paper. I met with humans, but is it finance? Well, no, not finance yet. Yeah, and transparency goes a long way, particularly when you're working with good folks who have to rely upon setting aside their schedule to make it work.
Or passing up on work in order to make themselves
exactly.
available for it.
For a passion project
Right.
that's not their baby,
Right.
they're being asked to work at a low rate and put their time aside. It's not just, the actors. It is the cinematographers. It's those key elements, those department heads. It doesn't happen without them.
Everybody on there is going to be a freelance. And if they have somebody that they work with regularly, say the camera crew, and they know that DP is going to go on to another job, great, that looks like they have another job. But in between those, they're unemployed. They're still freelancing.
And I'll say, just leaning into the Canon and cinematographer aspect of it, particularly working with young directors, one of the first things that comes up is make sure they have an experienced shooter, make sure they have an experienced DP, because that's what gives the talent, the actors, the comfort level, is working with folks who have been there, done that before, and I don't think people appreciate that enough.
It's true, but we're also at the at the festival here. There's probably quite a bit of them that have their first features, you know. And it like we have to. How do I say, like, getting everybody to be comfortable with somebody doing their first feature, like you said, like coming from experience. You know, obviously everybody is a little bit more comfortable with that, but we're also trying to like share, they can still do this. Like, you know, like maybe they've done commercials or music videos or they've done shorts, and we're trying to get them into their first feature, and it is trying to create that comfortability amongst everybody.
And that responsibility is often on producers to create that safe environment. I'm not just talking about practical considerations per se, but just people feeling comfortable. You know, it's having a proper amount of prep time, actually spending time, you know, with the talent. Well, I was talking earlier with somebody about just even having, you know, cinematographers have the opportunity to meet the talent before the shoot. Yeah. You know, and these privileges that aren't, well, it's not even a privilege, it should be a right. You know, on indie productions.
That's an interesting topic right there.
Just getting prep on an indie production can be a struggle.
Absolutely.
Because there's rarely the budget for it. And we're almost always donating time because we fall in love with the project, and then we end up giving our time to support that, whether or not the project happens or not. Which, actually, I just made up my own question, which is, how do you feel about free work, about doing unpaid jobs?
No, it's funny. I mean, you know, we were just talking about that. You know, it's a tricky situation because as a cinematographer in particular, you sign on to a job and the job starts in 3 weeks. It doesn't start in 3 weeks. It starts the minute you hang up the phone. You're on the phone with the filmmaker, the crew, you're crewing up, you're scouting, you're camera tests, you're doing all kinds of things, and you're not on payroll yet. As an agent, it's, you know, we don't love it. We want people to be paid for their time, but for an independent film with a tiny little budget, you know, they've got 4 weeks of prep. And so as agents, we kind of have to walk that line a little bit, understand this is the way it is, but do our best to explain to the producer that, you know, the time is what's of value here. So it's about respect, it's about trust, it's about communication, and I allow my clients to do what they feel they need to do to get the best product, and then I do my best to get them paid for it. But generally speaking, we don't love people doing free work. Line producers will often do free work. They'll do budgets for free. It's to create the relationship, and then they're, you know, hopefully guaranteed that film once it's greenlit. So, yeah.
Not always. I've been in that boat far too many times. Kristen, thoughts on free work?
I'm a little different. It's more of a case-by-case basis for me. I used to do a panel years ago where I would share like all this work of all these award-winning projects, mostly music videos and some shorts, where everybody had nobody had been paid on it, but they had carried them and got them their project, got them the project that they were at the festival for, gotten them the project that, you know, had gotten their calling card, like that, you know, kind of turned things around or turned things for them. So it is on a case-by-case basis. It, like you said, like nobody wants your clients to be free, especially as a freelancer. It's incredibly hard. You know, there's other ways, you know, that we try to offset it, but that's not always the case with everybody. But if there's a major talent involved, if there's a big director, if there's a legitimate producer behind it, if you know that it already has a way into some of the festivals, then there can be a reason. And unfortunately, you may not get paid with a check, with actual money, but you get paid with the visibility. You get paid with the next project. And so on those merits, like we do try to value, or try to, you know, see whether or not it's worth it for you.
And I'll say this just from a lawyer perspective. There's ways to accommodate these things. There are ways to actually transparently create deferral mechanisms. There are, you know, real genuine ways to give people an equitable piece of the action, as they say. But you have to ask the questions.
Yes.
You know, and occasionally you got to hire a lawyer, you know. What comes up quite frequently, I'm making a shift here, dealing with the unions, making those calls. You know, I'm in the same building as IATSE in New York, and sometimes I whisper in the elevator.
I was going to say.
But, you know, making those calls, you know, those calls that you know, are the last ones you want to make. I don't always practice in my own life, but those should be on top of the list. You're scared shit of the union, we'll deal with it. You know, make that phone call. You know, you don't want to have a conversation with talent about whether the money's really there or what's, you know, when the bottom's going to fall out. That's the call you need to make, respectfully, right?
Oh man, I have about 100 questions for you going off on that. But we sort of touched on something that I want to get into, which is the union. And when is the right time in your career to attempt or make the focus of joining the union, especially 600 camera?
Yeah.
You're saying yeah, so I'm going to throw it right to you.
No, I mean, that's the goal, right? You want to be a union member, and we see in the last year, of course, how important it is, to be part of that community, part of that, part of the union.
Why do you say you see
I-
last year how important it is?
Well, just because of all the fun stuff we've seen with the strikes, and the solidarity that we saw. And I know there's people that have very different views on what happened last year, but all in all, I think that collectively, the unions feel that they did all right. And so as a, I think, yeah, you want to be in the union eventually. However, you want to make sure it's the right time to do that. And, there have been a lot of situations where a client was on a non-union show that flipped. And there's a lot of questions as to, like, what do I do in that situation? And I think, if you have an agent, you let them handle it, obviously. If you don't, you have a conversation with the producer. And, you can be loyal to the production, for sure, but the goal should be to be a union member at some point, and they do frown on someone who doesn't play along. So I think it is good to listen to the union, communicate with the producer, and, I think you'll be all right.
If anybody isn't familiar with that process, a non-union film, sometimes a union representative will come into that film, talk to the crew, and invite the crew to vote to turn the film union or not. And then it's up to the crew. It's not, the producers cannot speak to them once that process happens about this. And sometimes it's very detrimental. Sometimes it's great. But as a crew member, are you loyal to the production, or are you loyal to yourself to get into that situation?
I'll say I've been on a number of shows that have gotten flipped over the years. And guess what? It comes back to communication. Guess what? It comes down to treating your crew right. Feeding them well is the most important thing in the world. That's not bullshit. It's real. That the considerations that are taken will swing the vote one way or the other, if, whether or not you treat folks, properly. And sometimes it's like, what side of the bed did the union rep get out on? Or who you walk over to talk to the union person,
Yeah.
There are those certain realities as well,
Yeah, you're going to be on that show for a short period of time, but you're going to be a union member for the duration of your career. So that's what I think the loyalty should be.
And same thing on the producer front, you're going to be around for a while, you better treat people right. And
Absolutely.
You know what, that's for everybody, though. If you want to be in this industry, you need to treat other people right, because the amount of, you're on a set with 300 to 500 people, and everybody, like as we talked about, you guys are freelancing. You guys are going to go on to other projects. Everybody's going to go on to other projects, and everybody talks about everything. And that's not just the reason to be it, but just know that how you behave, it doesn't just stay with that project. It will continue forever. If you're good behavior, it will be talked about. If it's bad behavior, it will get talked about even more.
So this has nothing to do with anything, really, but I was watching a movie the other day, and it was a battle of all the gangs. It was like a battle royale of all the gangs out there, and everyone was sort of laid to waste, and they're like, who don't you mess with? And the answer was the Teamsters.
Oh, my God.
Ouch, yeah, we're not touching on that one. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
And you completely derailed me. So I'm going to spin it from where I was there to you. We've got, a lot of directors, producers in the house today. What does it take to package a film, and how the hell does an independent producer make any money off of production these days?
What do you mean by money?
Anything more than success.
And I'm not being cute. What does it mean to package even? Packaging in the studio system is far different than packaging in the indie side. Packaging the indie side, is, from my perspective, all about spending the time on the script, and, the package can often be, you're sure there's talent, but the reality is, there's so many people having the same conversation about the same actor that won't be in their movie. And I look at pitch packages and I'm like, maybe you should just put at the top, these are the folks that won't be in my movie. So, packaging, it takes putting together a structure that actually makes sense, putting together a structure, I'm talking about from a legal perspective and practical perspective, that again, you can be transparent about. I use the same words all the time. Recognize what a privilege it is to be working in independent film to begin with, and treating all the, the folks with respect, and bring all those pieces together. How possible is it for 80 different artists to come together in one single purpose entity with a bunch of agreements that come to that entity, all serving the same purpose of making a film. Packaging means being responsible. It means having financiers that aren't crazy people, like, who are, who you've been, again, transparent with, and you have a deal that comes together that actually makes sense. You can have conversations where you're not trying to hide, the banana. So packaging, yeah, it's all about talent, except if you don't have a structure that makes the talent comfortable. If you don't have a good cinematographer on board, I'm not just coming back there because we're sitting at this, table, or good production designer, or a crew particularly supporting a young director if she's made a film before or not. So that to me is packaging. It's just being responsible, about it. It's not, a huge secret. Getting into the marketplace as an indie is completely upside down. It's an adjustment, that's beyond an adjustment, and that's another conversation. But again, if you're thoughtful about the process, you know who your audience is prospectively, and you can put together a project that can see the light of day in a way that you've been thoughtful enough to think about the various ways of getting it out there. That's the best way to package a film.
Yeah, 20 years ago, we could make a single sale to Blockbuster and recoup a major portion of an independent production. Today, I have no idea. I've got films that make 6 cents a viewing, and I'm like, how the hell do we ever recoup on this?
What's left out in the budget, and it's really tricky to get any indie film done, often is marketing money. Often even having a publicist when you get, you have an opportunity to be invited to Sundance. I've done this before, I produced a bunch of movies. God, I didn't have a set photographer. Like, I'm trying to get screen caps that don't work resolution-wise. These things are extraordinarily important, Understanding who the audience may be. This information is available. Art meeting commerce is a tricky thing. Having an understanding about how you get that widget out there, if you guys know that thing. It's like, I'm making a bunch of stuff, I started a company, but I don't know who I'm gonna sell my movie to. Or if someone doesn't come asking me to take my shit out there, what do I do then? That can no longer be a backstop. You can access 3 billion people with your phones, so having a handle on what you can do with a film without adhering to what may be traditionally thought as, the distribution models, that's changed. Good news is you can get it out there to whoever you want. Bad news is if you don't have marketing dollars and the wherewithal to figure out who the audience is, you got nothing. But that should be a line item in the budget. You got a $2 million film and you don't have, a couple $100,000 set aside for marketing?
Yeah, usually about 15% at least.
At least, and usually there's nothing there. So having a handle on what it means to go directly to the, transactional video on demand folks can do that, or even again, literally the direct-to-consumer thing can happen as well. So packaging just means being thoughtful and smart and surrounding yourself with people who are smarter than you are.
So you kind of brought up something else to talk about here, which is a blessing and also just a curse, which is social media. And how much should freelancers be involved in social media and have a presence on social media, and how important is it to have followers or however we define that?
It's pretty important. The social media, I liken it to, it's kind of like your storefront. It's a way for people to see your work, the work that you want to show, the work that you want to be sharing, the work that you want directors or producers to know you for. It's everybody's first window into your work. And it's quite easier than using websites, obviously. It is, it is one of the top things to be doing as a freelancer and to maintain it. It is not something to be doing, like if you're on a job, there are rules to it, there's an etiquette to it, there's a classiness to it. If you are shooting completely while you're supposed to be filming a job, that's not the best way to use social media. To share your experiences, to share who you are as an artist, to share what you want people to know of you as an artist, that type of work, that's the best use of it. Everybody should have it. On the commercial side, I can't speak to as much on the feature side, but on the commercial side, it has become more of a thing where the followers have been looked at in terms of who's gonna be sharing this and is this gonna serve the brand of the client. I wish it wasn't that way, but it is. So maintaining it, having some type of presence is important. Yeah, I don't know. Again, but the editors are different than the cinematographers and then are different from the production designers. You do have to figure out your community and your field, your departments, what other people are doing and go off of that. Every department I think has a different skewed way of using social media, but it is important regardless.
Yeah, it's essential. On the narrative side, television features, whether you're a cinematographer, production designer, any crew, I think in front of the camera too, behind no matter what, it's completely essential. As a freelancer, your responsibility is to brand yourself. And so that's part of your branding. And a website's essential too on the long form side for sure. And that website, and I get this a lot, how do I build a website? What should it look like? The answer is less is more. And you really want this website to be your sizzle reel to get a filmmaker to want to meet you. Not to show them everything you've ever done, because the minute a filmmaker sees something they don't like, they go to the next person on the pile. So it's really important to, I think, to stick to that. Social media, as Kristen knows, we've seen, especially on the commercial side, cinematographers have gotten jobs from DMing a director. I've seen it happen, and I was shocked at first, but it started with a question. Hey, how did you pull this off? And then a dialogue ensues. Suddenly they go to coffee, now they're working together on a commercial or a show. It's really crucial to be in that world.
Can I ask you, with regards to the narrative side, historically it was always going back to the CV, but are people relying more now on the reels itself for narrative, or is the CV still primarily?
It depends on the craft.
Okay.
But yeah, it depends on the person. I think, an editor, for instance, you need to look at the resume, and you need to watch a full film or show to really understand and measure an editor's work. And I get that question all the time. Can you just send me the reel for your editor? My editors don't have reels. They all of their stuff is available online. Go check it out, and then we'll talk. But for a DP to be able to show, your work.
Say again, I produce a bunch of movies from a legal perspective or just a business management perspective. Timing, of any information coming up on social media is essential. And protecting the folks in production. I'm not going to Sean Penn somebody, but if someone's like walking around the room shooting everything, it's like, I used to say, now this leaned into the expression, but it's like there's no due process anymore. You send something out there in the world, it's judge, jury, and tweet-acutioner. Now they're called X. It's judge, jury, and executioner. So the manner in which information goes out there and the timing that it goes out there in terms of the marketing of your film, if someone's putting out stuff before you've even had a festival premiere, you're going to feel like an old film. You're going to feel like a distressed film when you've already had a bunch of folks out there, that are promoting your film when there's no distributor. And you're old news by the time, your film even comes around. Another thing, influencers aren't necessarily actors. Like I see that pop up. It's like, wait a second, just because they open boxes really cool on the internet doesn't mean they can act. Like, I've seen that.
But you're seeing like one or two being thrown into every single cast in order to give they're like, they have a built-in audience, and there's 1 million followers.
A built-in audience and the power to ruin your movie.
But they're the ones getting all the ad dollars right now.
Yes, yeah.
TikTok and YouTube.
So you two kind of lobbed a little grenade over there in a side conversation, but talking about reels, and let's keep it to cinematographers for a second. But as a producer, I still am a huge fan of the montage reel because it allows me to see 15 different DPs really quick and make a decision, right? But that is for generally unrepresented cinematographers who don't have representation, and I think that montage reel is important. Once you do, how do you feel about it? Or when you're not?
We've had to get rid of montages.
What did you say?
I said we've had to lean against the montages.
We have.
100%.
We've fully leaned against the montage.
Unfortunately.
I think it's because of the folks that we're sending it to. You think about the audience that's looking at it, and the idea of taking the viewer through your story in the way with your audio and the way you cut it together. It's a beautiful concept. The problem is the people looking at it want to know what they are watching.
And what they aren't seeing. Why we've cut out certain pieces and included others.
So, the best response I'm getting is from, the trailers. Those are professionally done.
Or the scenes. If you cut scenes out of those, I think those are pretty effective too.
It used to be 2 minutes, then it was a minute and a half, now it's like 60 seconds. And, you cut together your own little 60-second piece with your audio. You get to show what you want, but you tell the person what it is they're watching, and they can click on it, watch it, and go to the next thing.
I'm a big believer in that. When it comes to reels, I know that there was a time where it was show everything with a celebrity or a big brand or whatnot. For me, the reels in your website is to show directors what you want them to see of your work. It is to show the people that are hiring you, the people that you want to work, what the work you want to be known for, what you want to be called on for. So for me, like, it is less is more 100%, and it is absolutely, it should be reflective of what it is you want to do, not just what you're trying to prove.
Okay, we'll still agree to disagree on that a little bit.
Sorry, Jay.
No, it's all good. That's why we're here. That's what we do. So let me open it up and see if anybody out there has a question. Okay. Yes, sir.
You mentioned the social media thing, and I've always heard different opposing things of like having an influencer in your film. Does it actually help with this show? Does it help with numbers? I've heard many different opinions.
It's going to be on a case basis. It's not going to be like one formula. If you throw an influence in there, it's going to build your audience, or it's going to be better received or better reviewed. You know, you have to see what makes sense with that particular project. But with anything in this business, if there's already a built-in audience from a book, from an influencer, from a chef, whomever it is, you have that audience that's going to tap into whatever project you're doing because they're a part of it. If they've got this audience on social media or however they've built it on there, you're guaranteeing that there will be eyes on it because of who you brought into it.
I got to jump in back on the timing side of things. I've never looked at TikTok. I post pictures of my cat on Instagram, and that's pretty much it for me. However, again, back to timing, you have somebody that you're going to put in your film, notwithstanding the fact that they may not be an actor. I think it's a fickle world out there. You know, somebody who's like high on the charts in tweet land or whatever, when your film is going to get shot, produced, delivered, and out there in the world, best case scenario, it's a year and a half from now. Yep. You think that same person that's ringing the bell on the I don't even know how to say it, on the TikTok world or whatever is going to be meaningful a year and a half from now? You're probably trying to, you know, it's so dependent.
It is dependent, but I don't know if you guys were here last year, there was a big movie called Talk to Me that were two directors that were from YouTube. This was their first film. I mean, they had done other little things, you know, they're Australian. They're on now to their $40 million or $50 million movie just after this, after being here.
But they directed the film.
They directed
and hit it out of the park.
They hit it out of the park.
Next, yes.
I have a question about sort of negotiating rates and prep days and that kind of thing when you're sort of like moving from one level to the next. Does it need like, as a person without an agent, it's like confusing to be like, oh, I just got a call from like regarding some sort of commercial work and I have no idea what kind of rates I should sort of be suggesting, and or like there's like a larger narrative feature that's interested, and it's like hard to figure out like where to even sort of get like a baseline for what I should be negotiating for. So I'm just wondering if you have any advice for sort of figuring that out. If you don't have any.
So if you didn't hear that in the back of the room, summing up what you were just asking, it's how do you negotiate your rates with producers when you don't have an agent?
Yeah, like where would be like a baseline to start, essentially? Like how do you figure out sort of like what a reasonable request would be, or like what a reasonable.
So narrative is the budget. Do you want to speak to it?
Yeah. I mean, on the narrative side of things, well, the union can be a good guide, first of all. Like, you know, there are set standard rates that are scale rates for both television and features. The independent tier rates are to be negotiated, but you know that it needs to be more than the operator, and that is public, you know, record. So you can kind of use that as a guideline. But I would, if you didn't have an agent, I would go to the filmmaker, the producer, and have that conversation, have an honest conversation. But I would probably lean on them first to talk about what they have in the budget, because you don't want to undercut yourself, obviously. And hopefully you have a trusting relationship with that person and they're going to be good about it. But I can tell you very ballpark, very general rates in independent films. $2, $3, $4 million film, for instance, will pay, you know, I'm getting myself in trouble, in the 5-ish a week range. And you hear my tentative voice because it's totally all over the place. But I want to make sure people understand that, you know, if somebody offers you $1,200 a week, it's probably not, it's not okay, unless you're getting a big old piece of the back end.
Or even that, you know, this isn't always the case, but for department heads to have MFN deals, no less favorable deals. Again,
Yeah.
it comes back to transparency. If you're, the DP on a film and the production designer's getting twice what you're getting, and there's no transparency, that doesn't create a healthy environment either.
Right.
Yeah.
No, yeah. That's just good.
Do you want to explain MFN?
I never use it as a lawyer because it's just so broadly interpreted. It means most favored nations, that your deal is no, worse, or better than the other person's deal.
I'm a big fan of that in the absolutely micro-budget world, to make sure that it's transparent, that everyone is getting exactly the same. Everyone's getting screwed totally evenly.
Yeah.
But it helps so that you suddenly don't be like, wait a minute, why is the AC making more than me? You don't get that animosity. Everybody understands it's a level playing field. And I probably killed what you were saying. Go ahead.
Well, commercials are a little bit trickier. Like, I'm a big fan of being like, hey, this is what I normally make, or my usual rate is this when I'm flexible, if you're starting in commercials, but it is, depending on how many of you've done, or if you have a body of commercial work or music videos to speak of, or you have a reel to share, like, you start at 4,000 or 5,000, depending on if you have a good body of work, like, you're around that. But again, it's like a case-by-case basis. I would also say, like, I'm flexible. If it's something that you want to do, you can price, you can start at 4,000 if you only want to do it if it's at like a 3,000 to 4,000 thing, If something comes in at 1,500, 2,000, like, you better ask what the crew rates are. You better ask what they have for everything else to see if that's even feasible. But in this day and age, especially right now, like, I'm seeing all types of budgets for commercials and music videos. Even non-union, I'm seeing $5,000 to $6,000 a day. I'm seeing union jobs that are $2,500 a day.
I just would say on the MFN thing, it's very tricky because producers will go after a certain cinematographer or a certain editor, and they're going to be at a level way more experienced, and it's going to be really tough to get that person to work for the same rates as everybody else. And they could turn it down if they don't, but
Sure, and absolutely.
It's rare. It happens occasionally, but it's rare to have everybody on the same rate.
Fair enough. I figure we can talk about that for a couple hours more. Sir.
I have a question. When you say music videos, I used to work for MTV, so they put music videos.
Yeah.
Now, these budgets are like nothing. So when you say music videos, that's what I'm saying. You're basically talking about certain directors that are making music videos for certain artists.
Yeah. Like, the ones we used to watch, like MTV doesn't show them, but we do it elsewhere, those are the music videos. Like,
Don't forget the mic.
Oh, sorry, from Childish Gambino to, every Flying Lotus, all of them, like, those are the music videos that we're doing. And the budgets are all over the place. I really thank Taylor and Beyonce this year. They did a great job for the music industry. People are coming back. They're wanting to make these films for their videos, and it's really brought back a resurgence of it. But it is on the artist, and sometimes it's 20,000 or 30,000. Sometimes it's 300,000 or $500,000.
Kristen, are the artists still subsidizing? Are they still financing these videos?
A lot of them are, yeah.
Yeah, I remember when that happened.
I know. And that's at the same time, like, I love music videos. It was what got me into this. I will help, if anybody ever comes to me with a music video, I will help them figure it out. I love it. And I think that it's given people so many legs in terms of showing what they can do, the work that they really want to do that's not derived by an agency or client or whatnot. They're like really able to show what they can do creatively, and it's been launching pads for so many DPs.
Yes.
We've been talking a lot about, connecting with other creatives on social media, but as a freelancer myself, I always find it very hard to understand when is it the right time to, network, because we don't know when our next job is going to be. Right. And the film industry is based on hiring on when you should talk to. So I wanted to get your input, like, when do you think is the right time for a freelancer to connect with crew and,
Crew or somebody that you want to work with?
Yeah,
somebody that you want to work with them, so you're wanting to reach out and introduce yourself?
Yeah.
When you have something specific to say. I'm sorry. When you have something, for me, it's when you have something specific to say. If there is something that is motivated you to reach out because you saw something in their work, you saw a shot and you're like, I could do that, or like, I did something similar, I'm curious how you did it, whatever, something specific. I very much caution against doing these blanket emails, doing a, hey, I love your work, I'm so-and-so, that kind of thing. If there's some sort of specific connection that you can create between you two, for me, I think that's the most effective way. And it's the most compelling for a filmmaker to get those types of messages or inquiries and saying like, you know, you're already showing me how we may or may not be connected.
Yeah. I'm glad you asked. It's a really important question because it is absolutely,
everything.
it's the most important thing. Relationships are everything when you're a freelancer. That's the thing that's going to keep you working. So reaching out, outreach is crucial all the time. So if you meet somebody at the festival and you guys trade information and you say, let's go do lunch when we're back in LA or wherever you are, don't flake on yourself. Actually do it. Do the outreach, follow through with people, get to know as many people as you can, go to the events,
100%.
send holiday cards, and if you work on a project, if you work on a short film, let's say, after that short film, keep the call list, stay in touch with the script supervisor, stay in touch with the AD, stay in touch with everybody on that production, because
Honestly, best
after
advice.
that project is done, everybody's gonna go off and go do their next thing, and you want them to tell that producer, hey, I just worked with so-and-so, it was incredible. So it is,
It's the beauty of freelancing.
yeah, that's everything.
If I can add my 2 cents in there, for what it's worth. Networking is always a struggle, right? And how do you be in a room with all these people and be like, okay, who can hire me on the next job? And I got a great piece of advice a couple years ago here at Sundance, which is don't do that. Show up in a room like this and start talking to people and find that person that you'd like to go to dinner with, or you'd like to hang out and have a drink with. And when you form that relationship, that will become somebody that you work with. So that made the stress of general networking a lot less for me. I thought it was a great tip. Next question. Sorry, I forgot who I was doing here. Yes.
I got the agent question. As a DP, I've been told keep your head down, do the work, and an agent will find you. And I've also been told the flip side of that, which is like, how can an agent find you if not? So
No, we find you.
We-
We'll find you,
That's
100%.
That's the job.
Can
It
you
is
repeat the
literally
question?
Oh, yeah.
You want to repeat the question? I'll let one of you do it. Just say.
No, go ahead.
Oh, so for you in the back there, he was asking, as a cinematographer, he's been told that an agent will find you when you're ready, and then other people have given him contradictory information, like you should be soliciting agents. And your response, please?
That's our job, to know who's out there, to be
find
to
you.
be at the festivals, to kind of distinguish who the next generation of DPs are. And so when you have something that's made a splash, we are going to come find you, I promise. Having said that, there's a caveat, which is you also shouldn't be terribly afraid to do some outreach. And if you feel like you have something that's made a splash and you aren't hearing from agents, it doesn't mean you can't reach out, but what I would recommend is you go to the agency's website. We all have websites except for a couple. Try to, find somebody whose work you want to emulate. Try to see if there's a connection. See if you have a connection to one of their clients. When you do that outreach, mention something that agent can then grasp in terms of a possible relationship. And then you are pretty certain to get a response of some kind. And the response might be, not right now, but you have created a bit of a dialogue there, which you can reach back out. So I just don't want to say, like, don't ever reach
No,
out.
and
You
like-
certainly can.
Meeting us as friends too is good, like if you have
Yeah.
questions and stuff, like you can start to see who you connect with, who's helpful towards you without any skin in the game, like you start to develop relationships so that when the time comes and you're like, the time's right? I've met 4 or 5 different agents and I know who I really respond to, or I know who I feel comfortable with, because when you are going and finding an agent, you definitely want to take the meetings. You want to meet as many people as you can. And ultimately, it's like, who do I feel comfortable with texting at 10 o'clock at night on a Sunday if something's gone wrong on set? If something is going right, like, who do I think is going to be there for me? But it's really hard to get that after one meeting. So if you spend some time, especially knowing that ultimately you will need to have an agent, but getting to know people and seeing the different styles, it only serves you. And then when the time comes, like, you've already established the relationship, you already have that dialogue, and then it's just a matter of being like, hey, are you guys ready to do this or whatnot? And you'll see who's interested and who's not.
Craig, I think it was you on one of our other panels saying that as an agent looking to represent somebody, you need that at least one title, right? You need that one title that played at Sundance, or the one title that got released on Netflix in his top 10, or something of that, right?
Yeah, yeah. Again, it's about having something that has made a splash. And, you know, it could be a short film that wasn't widely distributed, but it was something that was really well received. You know, one of our top DPs I met because she did this film called Pincushion that, you know, most people don't know what it is, but she's incredibly talented. I saw the short film. I was like, oh, my God, you know, and now she's doing big stuff. But the point is, yeah, it's important to have something that that agent can then go out with and go, hey, check this out. And so, you know, the bigger the splash, the easier that, you know, it helps us do our job.
Just so long as it isn't just a montage reel.
Exactly. No montages.
Yes.
Expanding off of that question, just delving a little bit to your mentality as agents and legal rep, what inspires you to work with your clients as individuals, you know, working as people with people? What inspires you to work with them? What do you look for as candidates?
I can say the people that actually do the work, you know. Again, Craig, we've all been saying, and Craig's been saying, it's all about relationships, all about community. I'm doing it for 30 years. I'm still a kid in a candy store. You know, I feel privileged to be doing what I'm doing. I'll sit in a theater and the tears will come to my eyes, not because it's a beautiful film necessarily, but because, wow, I got to contribute to it. I mean, no bullshit. So, you know, relationships are relationships. And if you're working and sitting across from someone and you understand that she'll spend all her time to make that vision happen and you get to participate in it and it feels like a privilege, that to me is what checks the box. And I read scripts, you know, and if people ask my opinion, I give it to them, you know. So that's what's important to me. And one other thing, and this is, you know, one of those, really, it's not that fine a line between those who operate in the business feeling privileged to be doing what they're doing and those who operate feeling entitled. You know, everyone can sort of define what that means for them in a particular film. I'm usually going with the folks that feel privileged to be doing what we're doing.
Yes, that's such a good point. That's such a good point. What I care most about is somebody with great communication. A lot of people can be passive aggressive at times, and I think if, you know, this relationship, agent-client relationship, is so intimate, and so it's like a marriage. This person's going to be speaking intelligently, hopefully, on your behalf, and is going to be the gateway to your career in a lot of ways. So the trust, the communication has to be so seamless all the time. And if you're feeling as a client, something's off, something's missing, I'm not feeling, have the talk. It's just like a relationship with a partner. Have the conversation. Hopefully you'll get through it. And if things still aren't going well, you might have to make a change. But I look for great communication, tons of passion for what they do, and a level of confidence. Because this is a career that involves a lot of rejection. And we're all insecure. But if you're looking left and right all the time, and it's keeping up with the Joneses all the time, it's going to get tired real quick. So I think, you know, being decisive, make your decision, go with it, and, you know, anyway, that's what I'm looking for.
I think for me, like, to start, it's the work. When I find work that I just can't get out of my head, and I go, yeah, full steam ahead. That's the first and foremost. And then it's the personality and how we connect, I'm not looking for the easy. I'm not looking for somebody I can tell what to do. I want you to be strong. I want you to have opinions. I want to feel confident I can put you anywhere. There is a level of maturity. I don't necessarily need you to think, there's going to be a lot of growth, especially as we work together. I'm going to try to guide you and mentor you, but it's the work and the connection, the personality, that is the two most important things for me. We can take it from there.
I want to poke Sundance in the ribs here a little bit. It's really important, and this is the producer talking more than the lawyer, that you're dealing with practical, reasonable folks as well. I get calls, you know, in February about, well, I'm going to start shooting my movie in April or May, and I want to meet the Sundance deadline in August. These are folks, and I'm like, you know what, this is insane. Make the film, not the deadline, folks. That is important as well. Folks that understand that you're in service of the film. not racing to the finish line with the fastest editor in New York, you know, and I'm going to get my film done and cut in 6 weeks to submit my half-baked film to a film festival that says they're taking 16 films in competition. It's really 8, with the legacy directors and, you know, the lab projects and so on. That's not cynicism, it's just the reality of it. So folks who understand the importance of that, understand the importance of taking criticism, understanding the importance of spending time with the script, understanding that it's a huge ask for an artist to ask another artist to come in and play with them when it's their baby. It's their baby. Come work for free, you know? It's like, oh, maybe, you know, but not if you think that you're entitled to it back there, but, you know. And again, look at this community. One other thing, left field, I'm talking to folks like, you skiing this year? I skied the last 3 days. Like, you come to a convention, like in the middle of Utah, and you're going skiing every day. It's about the community. It's about who you may talk to here or somewhere else that, you know, look at that ripple.
When is a good time for an artist to engage an attorney?
Really early? You know, it's what I do is not complicated. People are complicated, you know, and it comes back to communication, you know, and back to not necessarily practice always what I preach, but those difficult conversations between artists, who has final authority in creative matters, who's got, you know, more of the back end, or whatever these things. A lot of them are amorphous. You got to ask those questions, you know, really early on, and so. You don't necessarily need a lawyer to do that, but you probably need a lawyer to do the piece of paper, because there's so many things taken into consideration. You know, like every deal is kind of a prenup. You know, folks, well, there are forms online. It's like, you can find out how to take your fucking appendix, forgive my language, out online, but it's probably not the best idea, you know? So pretty early on, I'm working with lawyers that understand it and aren't necessarily, you know, punching the clock. I work on a flat fee almost invariably. I work for the, you know, on behalf of the production. And having that variable in a budget where the lawyer, you don't know what they're making, it doesn't quite work. So, working with someone that gets it from the outset and understands how you can actually put a deal together in an equitable and transparent way, you know. So early on. Well, and it's maybe arguably self-serving, but if you screw something up and you have a piece of paper that doesn't make sense, it's going to cost you more to unbake that cake than it is to actually bake the cake to begin with.
Totally.
And work with lawyers that understand what they're doing. You know, I get calls saying, I really trust you, can you handle my adoption? It's like, well, yeah. Go to your dentist to take out, again, you take your appendix out. It doesn't make sense either.
Full service. Any other questions? Yes.
So on the social media topic, I've had discussions with people who have expressed the perspective that it's actually not a good idea to put a lot of stuff on social media. People don't want to, they want to
Stories are there for a reason.
Yeah, I've seen people say like, oh, people want to be able to make my creative vision. They don't want to see your personal perspective on their social. There's like so many successful people in private profile. Just curious on your thoughts there.
Can you elaborate? Like, what was, like, are you a cinematographer, or was this about you putting your work out there, or?
Yeah, I mean, I've just seen other DPs and other people discussing this, that like, if you're putting all of your own work up, that clients are potentially seeing too much of your own. They don't want they want to be able to make sure you can execute their vision versus too much of your own.
I mean, well, as a DP, you're always working with somebody, right? You're not putting, I mean, you're putting hopefully what speaks to you and what reflects your style, but there is some other components that are dictating the work, right? As Craig said earlier, less is more. You want to be strategic in what you post. Stories are great because they go away. And there is, in my opinion, a big thing for the mysteriousness of it. You don't want somebody to think that they know you completely from your social media profiles. But it is incredibly effective. I mean, this industry alone is one of those where you are being judged and judged off of your work without necessarily knowing it, right? The people that you're up for a movie, you may have 15 or 20 people that you've never met, you don't have any idea, and they're literally climbing through your work, going through and looking at every single thing to see if it makes it work. That doesn't always happen. That's not necessarily how it works in other industries. So you do have to be mindful. You have to be strategic in how you do it. And you have to do something that is reflective of who you are inside as well. And not just because everybody is doing something means that you have to do it as well. But you do have to do it. You do have to put certain things. It can be up to you what you want to be. It can be completely abstract. It can be, you know, images that you took on non-jobs. It's up to you. But you got to be searchable, and you have to have some sort of presence in there. You'll end up losing out to somebody who does because of it. Is that helpful?
Can I throw one that's just completely practical? It's the same advice of like, you're going to submit a script, get the names right, like, which is important. People send me reels and like a teaser for their film, and which is like, a hot thing, and it's really important and timely. And the link is from like 2019, and there's like 8 views, and I just want to cry. Like, go, like, update your sites. Like, it's the simplest thing in the world. Like, take a look. You send someone a link, and maybe it shouldn't have every other idiot thing you've done. Like, God, I sound like a jerk, but it's important. Send out like an independent thing, and here it goes. God, it came up yesterday, not 5 years ago. And again, here's a little, commercial spec spot I did in 1992. Like, so that's really important, how you present. In the same manner that you're going to send a script to an agent, figure out how to spell out Mizrahi. Like, figure out, like,
It's tough. I think it's okay, by the way, to have some of your personal life on your Instagram, for instance, but to a minimum. I mean, I'm somebody from another generation, so I use Instagram so that my family who don't live near me get to see my pictures of my kids. There are people out there like that also, want to, show others their life, and I think it's okay. And there's plenty of really successful DPs out there that show people. But I think, and there's other people that just have 2 separate accounts, which of course you could do, but I think it's okay.
So I've got a little input on that as well, as a producer who hires people. If you're applying, I'm going to look at your social media. And what I want to see, I don't want to see just screen grabs of your work. That's what your resume or your website's for, right? I want to see screen grabs of your work. I want to see some behind the scenes of you working. And I want to see something personal of you. I don't want to see all your cat or all of your dog.
Excuse me?
Just no, I follow your cat passionately, but that's a whole different thing. So it's a blend, and it's like Kristen said, it's a way to brand yourself and market yourself. Let me understand who you are. Oh man, you like sailing too? Awesome. We're gonna have a conversation because that's something that I'm into. It's important to have that blend. Don't make it a duplicate of your website. It's got to be something a little bit more. Okay. Yeah.
Kind of going off that question, but in terms for directors, I'm just wondering, social media presence for directors, and then also, let's say if you're receiving material from a director, beyond, say, like a pitch deck or a script for a film, what else do you like to see from directors? Just kind of get a feel for them and the work that they've done previously.
Oh, I like that question. Anybody have an answer to that?
I do. When I get a deck, firstly, I don't want to see a bunch of clip art. I want to see something that actually took some creative ingenuity, that tells a story, that you turn a page and you actually want to read the next page, and I don't see enough of that. So how you present, a lot of it's just, logic and, and reasoning. If you can't get through it, an 8-page deck, and don't make it an 80-page deck, where there's some association between how this person connect a story to images, or even the manner that you present it. I've been developing this Dean Martin doc series project, which we made a record album. Didn't take any, brilliant flash. It looks great. Developing this gut punch Ayn Rand satire scripted project, which we did as an old, Life magazine. And it was part of the storytelling process. So spend that time. You get one bite at that, proverbial apple as it was, and you might as well, take your best swing. Have I mixed enough metaphors? Yeah.
We'll let it go. Kristen, Craig, anything on that? Fair enough.
Jonathan, he covered it.
I don't hire other directors than myself, so I got no advice for that. So I was happy to hear that. Anybody else in the room? All right. Well, thank you to the 3 of you. Thank you for being here. Thank you to all of you for attending on behalf of American Cinematographer and Canon.
Is there a replay?
Yes, this has been recorded, and Canon will put it online at some point. Check out Canon. Yeah.